to talk about this show because I felt like the premiered on Monday, and it opened the door and opened the conversation for us to have even more uncomfortable conversations with our families, with our friends, with our loved ones.
Right.
In the season 3 premiere, it tackled issues of race, policing. You guys featured real footage of the protests, some from here in LA, and the Black Lives Matter movement. Sheun, why is it important for sitcoms like yours, like The Neighborhood, and shows in general, to highlight and address the real life issues that we're currently facing?
Thank you for saying all that, first and foremost. And I think just because that is our real life experience, you know what I mean? I think sometimes we get away from the idea that this is TV, but you're looking at human beings and you're looking at real people. We're artists and we're real people and we feel just like everybody else feels. And I think it would have been highly irresponsible of us not to, or of anybody with a platform, not to tackle this issue. Because if it's one thing that this does, is it gives people who don't understand what we go through a chance to put it in their face and see it. And either people come away from it with some different level of understanding, or they learn something they didn't know before. And the great thing about our show is that it's naturally set up to kind of deal with these things, right? And it's easier to approach anything through that lens of humor. You know what I mean? Like if we approach each other through something funny, then we can get into a different conversation rather than coming at it just, with a bunch of angst and anxiety or whatever it is. Because we are a sitcom, on one hand, there's only so far we can go. But on the other hand, we're able to approach these subjects through a lens of humor and show the effect that this really has on a Black family. And for a white family to see that firsthand, I think kind of put this all into perspective of Black people having to say, hey, my life matters. Hey, I'm human. Right. And for a white family to have to see that front and center, I think couldn't be more impactful. So, and I'm proud that CBS and our writers and our creator and SAID and everybody was just like, yo, that has to be our first episode.
Right. I love it. Out the gate. Like you said, The Neighborhood infuses comedy into these more serious topics. Otherwise, that, like on a drama, they would be all serious. But you guys are a comedy, a sitcom. So you guys do infuse the comedy. Do you think that helps at all with the nature of the subject matter that you guys tackle?
Absolutely, man. Like in I don't know if it was season 1 or something like that. We had this episode where Beth Bears, her character, comes over and she wants to use the shower, and Tashina gives her a wash rag.
Right, I remember that.
Right, Beth looks at her like, "What the hell is that for?" And Tashina's like, "To wash your ass, like for you to use." Beth's character is like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Oh, you know what I mean?" And it's so funny, like we're laughing at it now, but those little things will be a bridge to another conversation that you might not be able to have. You know what I mean? Like when you're in the office or wherever you are with somebody who doesn't look like you, if you're like, yo, did you see that bit on this show? And you're both laughing at it, but then it starts a conversation to, I wonder what else we do that's different, but I also wonder what else we do that's alike. And I think you'll find more stuff you do that's alike than you do that's not alike. But because of that little tidbit, that's what opened the door to that conversation. Because I've always felt like, man, like comedy, food, and music will always kind of bring people together. You know what I mean? And it'll always kind of bridge whatever anxiety or angst it's there, and to be able to use our comedy that way, I think is our job at this point.
There's this moment between your character and your dad, Calvin, played by Cedric the Entertainer, in which after the protest, your character says to his dad that maybe if he had been through what you had just experienced with your friend or a similar situation, that he would understand. And then Cedric then says, I have been through this same thing. And then in that moment, for me, watching as a viewer, I began to realize how generational racism has been and has played a factor in our lives as Black people, right? And, I want to ask you, when you were filming these scenes and filming this episode in particular, did it take you to a place where you had to drum up real emotions to tap into your character and to what was going on? Did that come from a real place?
Thank you for asking that, and thank you for watching the way you did. That's funny. Like that one moment, we went back and forth because my initial reaction to it was, there is no way that I would say that to my parent. Because I'm sure you know your parents told you, and my parents taught me what this, what this is.
Right.
But said was smart enough to understand, and our creator, Jim Reynolds, was smart enough to understand. The creator of the show was smart enough to understand, because of what you just asked me, is why I needed to say it, so that people can understand the generations of racism that Black people have to deal with. And of course, for me, it did bring up issues. I'm born and raised in Miami. And I always tell people I grew up in the projects in Miami. I'm not from the part, where people go to party.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when my parents were little, there were places they literally couldn't walk because it said no Blacks and no Jews. You know what I mean? They had signs that literally said that. And so reading that line, it drummed up all that stuff. It drummed up my experiences being pulled over by cops and being handcuffed and having guns drawn on me for no reason. It drummed up all of that. Right. And my forte, I feel, as an actor is I feel like I can do a lot of different things, but I made my bones doing theater and like really gritty, dramatic work. So it's never a problem for me dramatically. But in that moment, yeah, it was real. You can get lost in that. And I did have those levels of what this means, not only to me, but what it must mean to Cedric and what it must mean to somebody older than Cedric,
Definitely. I have to ask also, so this year, 2020, the year of the pandemic, COVID-19, the whole bit, what was it like for you going back to set and going to work? Because you guys shot season 3 during the pandemic, is that right? You guys
No,
shot
so we ended season 2 like right on time, like right on our natural schedule that we ended. I think we fell one episode short, or we actually stopped right in the middle of our season finale of season 2. And so we really didn't miss any time as far as our schedule. But I mean, for all of us, and we're still going through, coronavirus, and God bless those that have passed away, and God willing, we can get a hold on it. But I think for everybody, man, it made us realize what's really important, and it made us realize what a blessing it is for the things that we do have.
Right.
And I know coming out of quarantine and coming out of isolation, I'm here in my dressing room now, like being back on set was just it was surreal, but it was a blessing, and it was a real boost, to just yourself, just your, as an individual. It was just a boost because we spent so much time in isolation and not knowing what was going to happen, and being around all these people. I mean, this is our 3rd season. We're like family now, and everybody's doing good, and everybody's healthy. So it was a blessing, man, to be back, and it's still a blessing to be back and be around all these people. So,
Sheun, why do you think viewers connect with your show in the way that they do? Why do you think people are on Twitter and tweeting you guys in the season 3 premiere opener? Why do you think fans gravitate to your show?
I think there's something for everybody to resonate with, whether it's somebody like a sibling dynamic with myself and Marcel, who is freaking hysterical. People can identify with that. Me personally, my character being a kid who's trying to navigate his way through life.
Yes.
And it's just at the start of the show, didn't have a job. There's so many people that's been in that position who want the world to see that they have so much more to offer. And just because I don't have a job doesn't mean I'm not all these things. And then watching people with a marriage, watching that play out, watching people raise a kid, watching that play out, what it's like to move to a different neighborhood and not know anybody. I feel like there's something for everybody in our show. And then, Cedric the Entertainer, man, and Tashina Arnold, who is by far the funniest person you will ever meet in the world. So working with those legends it's crazy.
Speaking of those legends, what's been the biggest takeaway that you've learned from those two? What's been the thing that stuck with you the most that you've learned?
I think that a lot of people don't know how talented Tashina is. And I mean, she has been working since Little Shop of Horrors. For all of us who know that, like legit been working since that that is, to sustain that, like that's incredible. And like T, when we started the season, Sheena had foot surgery. So in the first 2 episodes, you'll see that, you know, she had like a walking boot and all this stuff and didn't miss a beat, didn't complain, didn't, just a complete pro, extremely talented, comedically and dramatically. And then Cedric, man, like I just learn from him all the time because he is a true comedic genius and that he can hear something and just kind of be like, nah, that's not working, like tweak it this way and tweak it that way. And for me, there's still these moments where I'm like, that's the damn king of comedy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's one of the kings of comedy. I'll be in a scene with him and I'm just like, it'll just hit me. And I'm like, oh shit, like that's really Cedric. You know what I mean? And he is the nicest dude you could ever meet, man. Like I've been working for a little while and you come across certain people who aren't as nice as he is, I'll just say. Right. And he's so down to earth and so humble, and he's just great at his craft, like really great at his craft. And even in that first episode where you got to see him be dramatic, like it was easy for him to just make that switch. So it's a learning lesson working with them.
Right, definitely. Sheun, thank you so much. But before I let you go, I have to ask you, 2020 has been just a year of uncertainty and, you know, us getting uncomfortable with ourselves.
Yeah.
What's been the one thing that let me get this right. Okay. What's been the one thing for you in 2020 that has caused you to stretch and get uncomfortable?
Leaning into my faith. Because my entire career, if I had the time to tell my whole story, is really about a trust of God. And if you're going to trust him, you got to trust him all the way, right? You know what I mean?
Say that again. Yes.
You got to trust him all the way because his plans are better than yours.
Ooh.
And I, even going through all of this, not being able to get back home to Miami with my family or not knowing what was going to happen to the show, I'm very blessed to be like purchasing my first home and not knowing what was going on with that. And through it all, God was just like, just chill out. We'll be all right.
Right.
And here I am back on set, blessed to be working. My family so far is healthy. The home thing is happening. So it's lean into your faith and just trust it. Give it over to him and it's going to be all right.
Well, on that note, we're going to be leaning in our faith and watching you guys on Monday nights on CBS, The Neighborhood. Sheun, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Where is the buzz? Where is the buzz? You said was mine.